we'd like to see groups going all year round, and I mean, so that's just kind of where we are, and we're trying to engage in that. Now this year, so like I said, we had about 70. We had a different approach to the groups. In years past, we've had them, there'd be groups on, a lot of the groups were on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. We let the groups decide in that. This year we're like, people are really busy. People are, crazy busy. So we threw out an idea, and we have a seminar type. We're going through, has anybody ever heard of this material, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality? It's an 8-week study about personally getting healthy, and that if you're not emotionally healthy, you can't be spiritually healthy, and how you can deal with issues. And it's actually very, very good material. But anyway, so we have a seminar type of a small group this year. And so we have one guy leading the sessions, and then we have, from 3 to 5 o'clock, we have table groups and a seminar leader. And then at 5 o'clock, we have a meal. And at 6 o'clock, we have a seminar. So we've got one guy's presenting all the material, and we recruited 5 small group table leaders to just their discussion. So the guy gets up and teaches, and then he says, okay, discuss this at your table. So it's kind of an interesting model to maybe train some people. It's not super intimidating to lead a small group discussion if somebody's presenting, but we're kind of hoping that some people will go, oh, maybe I could become a small group leader. So we have 5 small groups meeting from 3 to 5. We have a fellowship supper, and then we have 4 small groups meeting, table groups meeting from the 6 to 8 o'clock hour. And so we have about the same amount of people involved. Why am I telling you that? It's like, don't be afraid to try stuff. And sometimes stuff will catch on, and sometimes things will work, and I don't know. And there's strengths and weaknesses. Now the thing that's kind of cool about this, we have a part-time guy. We've hired him part-time to be working with our small groups. He's during Sunday school, he meets with the table group leaders each week, and he lays out the session. And so they're during this 8 weeks, they're getting trained pretty efficiently. And then they come to their session, so they feel really prepared to lead this discussion. So I'm pretty excited about how that's going. A lot of times a small group is like, plug and play. People are wanting a DVD. They want to put a DVD in. You watch Francis Chan, and then you talk and pray about it, and you're like, well, what is that? That's not bad. How's that working? What is that accomplishing? How is that helping people connect? Let's go to page 2, and I want to just, this is an article that I got from smallgroups.com, Christianity Today. I recommend, there's 3 websites that are really good. Smallgroups.com is Christianity Today, and there's lots of ideas. Actually, you can go to smallgroups.com, and you can get a lot of small group material. Actually, the last time I did it, it was $99 a year. You can go on there, and you could print off a small group on all kind of topical, biblical. You can say, well, I'd like small group material for the book of Colossians. Boom, you go on there, print it off, you can hand it out. It's really, there's lots of philosophy, there's lots of evaluation type. Christianity Today has done a really good job here, and this article is from that website there. I strongly recommend it. You can even go on for a 14-day trial period. They used to have it this way. And during that 14-day trial period, you could print off some free material. Because they just want to be a resource for you. And I've used some of their material to do Christmas sermons with small group material, or Easter sermons with small group material. Anyway, but you need to be thinking about what kind of groups, because you've maybe had sermon-based groups. So like the small groups based, it's a sermon discussion, or what have you. So the first thing on there, open groups. We talked about that it's important to have open groups. I think it's important to have, in our society today, let's be honest, people, if they come to the church and they're somewhat new, they're like, they might be a little intimidated to join a small group that's going to meet for 3 years. You're like, that's a little overwhelming. So if there's not a process, maybe they need an 8-week. And so I think that's one of the strengths of our 8-week period that we do is like, there's a clear end, beginning, clear end. They can evaluate at the end of that and go, and then maybe they can take the next step. And maybe they'll do an 8-week series again, and an 8-week series again, and then maybe they'll find an affinity, and then they will plug into a longer term type of a group. You know, another small group, financial peace, you know, grief share, divorce care, groups that are, you know, 8 to 12 weeks long. You know, people can do that. They can manage that, and then at the end they'll kind of evaluate and take theirs. So, open groups, closed groups, a little definition there. Cell groups. This is something that churches have talked about. 5 to 15 members who meet weekly, and so the church is divided, maybe the leadership's divided the group into cells, you know, and so they're trying to get everybody involved in a cell group. As that's one other area of a small group. And I'm just giving you these so you can maybe look at your situation and say, oh, well, that's what that is. Interest groups. Groups based around different topics, affinities, those sorts of things. Those are groups. You know, a number of years ago, my wife did a scrapbooking group with a Bible study with someone. That was an affinity type of a group. There was a small group of women there that really connected with each other, and I think they met through a fall semester. And that was kind of an interest type of a group. Neighborhood groups. The church has also done this. They're like, okay, so let's divide the town into quadrants, and so we want to have 2 groups in the northwest quadrant and 2 in the northeast, or your towns that you represent and things like that. So it's kind of geographically located type of a thing. You're like, okay, I can see the value to that. Next one, we'll go over there. Purpose-driven small groups. That's kind of the Rick Warren's type of a model. The other websites, you know, whatever you feel about Rick Warren, that's up to you. They certainly have some good resources that are helpful. I mean, they've done a lot of things. So the other two, so Christianity Today has the smallgroups.com. Rick Warren has smallgroups.net and smallgroups.org. They've had the other 2 websites related to small groups. And if you go there, you'll also find a lot of PDFs and resources there. You know, I've found Rick Warren's stuff to be really helpful. A lot of times they'll have 40-day campaigns or different things, and you know, if your church, if that's going to be a lightning rod because Rick Warren's people in your church think he's off in the deep end, then don't do it. I mean, if your church can handle using some resources there, I've found that the resources are pretty helpful. Sermon-based groups. You know, this is kind of interesting. Just having preaching in the morning and then having groups that meet, and the main content is not to review the pastor's sermon, but to, you know, go deeper. You go deeper there, and we've tried that sermon-based groups. You can preach, and then those could meet anytime during the week. We've tried having groups where they meet after church, or maybe there's a sermon-based group during Sunday school, sermon discussion group, that kind of a thing. Organic groups. These are kind of groups that, you know, kind of naturally, people naturally will develop, so there's maybe not a big structure in place. That's kind of interesting. House group is similar to the small groups model. There, you can read, I'm just giving this to you as a resource. Host groups. Small group leaders are recruited as a host. This is kind of a DVD approach. You know, you're like, and this, Right Now Media, does anybody have a subscription to that in your church? Raise your hand, do you? Okay. So that's interesting because like the whole world is at your doorstep there. And so I think that's good and that's bad maybe. I don't know, I think you kind of weigh that out and think, They called me last week and I said, we're not ready for that. I don't have the budget. B, I'm not sure how that fits right now into our setting. And so if you don't know what Right Now Media is, it's kind of like, I'd say, Christian Netflix, so small groups. So if you pay this subscription fee of, I don't know, is it $1,000, $1,500, or what the annual cost is. But so if your church buys into Right Now Media, you can give everybody in your church access to your Netflix account, and they can watch Francis Chan, Max Lucado. They can watch most stuff is on there. And that's good because a lot of people have TV that can bring it into their home, and like I said, we're kind of weighing whether that's helpful for us. But that's the host groups. Now, I've been talking a lot, so we've talked about what kind of groups, who's in charge, that sort of thing. Let me give questions before we go to the next couple of pages. Any comments or questions on small groups? It'd be my desire to help you. I just want to help you identify where you are, maybe where you'd like to be, and how are you going to get there. And there's not a one-size-fits-all. You're going to need a variety. Like if you're going to try to engage people and have them have an entry-level type of experience and then get into more longer-term groups. Any questions, comments? I'll be quiet for a minute.
My name's Herb. We have a men's group that meets Tuesday nights at the prayer room over at the Q 1071. We've been meeting for probably 4 or 5 years now, and we have a small core of guys, maybe 5 or 7, that are always there. And not that we want to be a closed group, we want to be an open group. How do